Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering the Jinkx and Dela Holiday Special. In this episode, I am going to be talking about what apparently is a holiday tradition for these two fabulous ladies that came to Dallas 5 days ago. Less, actually. And I didn't know, and I missed it. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. Florian in the chat says, oh no, maybe next year. Yeah, maybe. I didn't actually check to see what the prices are like for the tickets. I don't know if I would even still be able to find that information out after the fact. But yeah, it was taking place like right here in Dallas, which I say right here. Dallas is like an hour and a half away from me, but it's not impossible. And they had a couple of pictures of big finales on their Twitter because it was like linked there. And they clearly, I think, do a different show every year, right? Or is it like the same holiday special? The costumes that the dancers were wearing did not look the same as anything that was on the one I watched. So my impression is that it's a different like storyline or different songs, or maybe they just switched the costumes up, but it's the same songs. I don't know. But it would be probably a really, really fun thing to watch live. So I want to give you guys an overview generally about my lack of experience with drag. I have not actually ever been to a drag show. I have never watched any of the like RuPaul's Drag Race. I have had a couple of specific performances shared with me by friends because there was like a gimmick or a costume that they thought I would really like in particular. The only real experience I have is like from a kid watching the Birdcage and like understanding what a drag show was from that, because I had always thought a drag show was the kind of thing that was like a specifically gay social scene. And when I was little and saw the Birdcage, and that there was like a lot of straight folks and just like couples and stuff in the audience, and that it was meant to be kind of almost like a stand-up show, I was like, oh, none of this is like what I thought it was, you know? So that is the only real experience that I have with it. And that is not because like I have an issue with it or am not interested. It's just never been in like a convenient place for me to experience. And I haven't been surrounded by many gay friends who are involved like I am now. Like I have a lot of friends now who are involved in this kind of thing, like creatively, or they are trying to become a performer. But that's fairly new for me. That didn't used to be a thing. So it wasn't just like part of my overall awareness. And I kind of wish it was, because I bet when I lived in Philly, there was like some access that I just sort of like did not take advantage of, which is too bad. Florian is in the chat saying, it is a lot of things. Stand-up/hosting can be a part of it. For some, it is all of it. Alex said, I watched this only because you were covering it. Yeah, so, and the other thing was, for me with like Drag Race, I had started to grow interested in watching it, and then RuPaul had like those unfortunate transphobic comments and stuff. And I just sort of backed away in general from anything involved with her because of that. So that's not to say that, you know, I would be averse entirely to watching it, or at least sections of it that people said were particularly good. But it left a bad taste in my mouth overall, and a lot of people that I knew fairly well seemed to also feel like that was the right move, that it was like something to not really support wholeheartedly anymore. But it's really tough when there is a property that is so important for representation and it's one of the only ones, and then somebody is like hugely problematic, and it's like, yeah, but now we're also throwing away all of this like really important creative work and representation that isn't happening other places, which I know now it's starting to happen in some other places, but you know, at the time, it's just really, it's a tricky thing. This is always the issue when there is a lack of representation in a certain area. Anything that is produced in that area is under so much more scrutiny than it would be ordinarily, in a really unfair way. And so there's a pressure to be perfect that other things don't experience, because there is such a variety that you're allowed to fail and be shitty, and it's fine. Like, you know, how many bad action movies are there with straight white male leads, and they're just allowed to be shitty. But if there's an action movie with a woman lead, it's not great, everybody's just like, well, I guess that means we just can't have women as action stars, that kind of thing. So I just get, it's a very tricky area, and I always feel a little bit unsure of myself. Florian says, RuPaul came back from those comments, but the show isn't perfect, but it is also great. Alex says, she's backpedaled now, and there have been a number of trans contestants now, but yeah, it was icky at the time. Megan says, plus the fracking. I don't know what that means. What was fracking, like the type of mining? That's all I know fracking from, unless that means something else. Alex says, there is that too, though Bob and Peppermint, when that got brought up, makes me laugh every time. RuPaul had fracking on his property. What? What? That doesn't sound real. Like, I believe you. 100% believe you. But that just sounds like, who agrees to that? Why would you? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Alex says, yeah, she owns a bunch of land in Wyoming and lets the government frack it. I thought, like, and I know that doesn't make any, but the way, when Megan says on property, I'm imagining, like, you know, next to the pool. And obviously that's not it, but that's like what my head immediately did, was just like, oh yeah, you can come and frack, and I have a barbecue happening today if you could just keep it down. Oh God. So, all right. So yeah, I just wanted to like kind of let you guys know about that, and the fact that I don't have a lot of experience with drag. It is something that I was like considering getting involved in, because I worked with somebody for a time who did drag performance as a hobby and was like trying to break into it a little bit in a bigger way. And he wanted me to do his costumes because I was like really good at that stuff at the time, but it just never gelled for us to like get together and do that stuff. And I think if I'm being totally honest, I think there's a part of me that feels a little bit resistant to drag, because I feel like jealous of the fact that I am often throughout my life have been accused of being too much, which now I wear as a badge of honor, but it was tough sometimes. And as a performer and as somebody who loves to really do everything up, but also as a woman, it was not celebrated very much. It was just sort of seen as like high maintenance and looking for attention, and just a lot of negative associations with that kind of like enjoying that aesthetic and having that personality and that desire for that big kind of splashy performance and look. So I think that there is a part of me that is just a little envious of the fact that this is such a popular thing now that, like, and granted, there is a whole host of issues that go along with it. And I recognize that that's like, it's not just a freebie. You're paying prices for it, you know, but I think that there is envy there for me around it. And definitely, like, watching this, there were so many moments where I was just like, see, I just literally, like, want to wear that. Like, I just want it. I want to wear it. And it's on stage. It's a whole thing. Like, it's not the same. And I know that, as me wanting to wear a floor-length white fur-lined coat out. It's not the same, because if one of these queens went out dressed like this, they would have a lot of issues, and it's a very different situation to me wearing it, even if I did have some issues also. Totally different situation. But there's that sort of irrationality there, you know, where I'm just like, but I would like this too. And it's just kind of like, this is a difficult thing, I think, with just like the experience of being a woman and being told that you can't have certain things, and having to sort of get over that and just be brave and do it anyway. And it's not something that everybody is really able to break past. And a lot of folks still are very hung up on whether or not they're, like, allowed to wear certain things or behave a certain way. So I think that's also been, like, part of my resistance. Like, my friend who wanted me to do costumes for him, and low key, I was like, okay, I would like to make costumes like this, but also I would want to be the one wearing them. I don't want to make them for somebody else to wear and be fabulous. I want to wear them and be fabulous, and just feeling like, God damn it, you know? So yeah, I just want to put all of that on the table, because, like, I haven't covered anything like this before. So it's just totally new territory. And I didn't know what to expect going into this at all, because, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a show that, like, this, not necessarily this same exact show specifically, but this is something that they do every year, it seems like, is tour and do this as a stage production. So it's like a genuine sort of event. And I thought this was just a fun thing they were doing in the year of whenever this was made, 2021, I'm assuming, or the Christmas of 2020, maybe. And finding out that it's just like a whole thing, and they were only doing it this way because of the pandemic. I'm just like, man, I am really not keyed into any of this. So I didn't know what we were going to get at all here. And we start off with a waking up in the morning sort of sequence of Jinkx and Dela, and the different way that they each wake up and start the day. And this was very fun. I always enjoy this storytelling device. This is something that is done in, like, Community as well. There's an episode that is, I think, the very start of season 2 or 3, and you see every character and the way they each start their day. And some of them are scrambling out of bed, like, you know, already late, running in with basically what they slept in on their body still. And then there's, like, Jeff, who's already awake and doing crunches hanging upside down from the ceiling. And just the way everybody else's, like, routines are so different. So we have Dela waking up, and she is wide awake, super excited, all, like, ready to go. Yanks a calendar thing, like one of those tearaways, and it just says, "It's Christmas!" And jumps out of bed into these, like, lucite heel sort of like sandal thing. I can't remember if they are called slippers or not, but I was looking for ones like this with a black strap, because I have a black feather robe just like the one that Jinkx is wearing later that I got to get ready for my wedding in. and there's a bunch of pictures of me in it, like with my hair in rollers and my makeup done. I have a very like Jinxy look in the images right before I have gotten into my wedding dress. But yeah, the two of them have just distinctly different energy. Jinkx wakes up, headache, finds a random pair of underwear, and there is a very fine man naked in her bed, and she's just sort of like, oh yeah, that guy. And she is barely getting it together while Dela is putting on these earrings that are actually like full-sized Christmas ornaments. And she's putting on, I think those are veneers. I'm not even sure what those are. Let's see. Florian says, I love when they walk down the stairs with Jinkx. The lights go out. When Dela walks down, they turn on. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Alex says, Jinx's drag persona is a Jewish mom. Oh, okay. And Dela says her drag persona could be described as terminally delightful. Alex says she's Seattle premier Jewish narcoleptic drag mom. My goodness. I don't even know what to do with some of that. I didn't see the narcoleptic here. Maybe that's just not suited to this particular, special. Alex says she legit has narcolepsy. Oh shit. I always wonder what that's like for people. That's got to be just really tough. Yeah, there is like the energy that I assigned to both of them once we get rolling is Dela is Charlotte and Jinkx is Samantha, right? If we're just going to do like a Sex and the City comparison. And it really seems to sort of like work out in terms of their overall life experiences as well. But I really enjoy seeing like Dela is sucking on a candy cane, but we've got Jinkx sucking on a joint, and Jinkx has got all of this sort of witchy vibe to the stuff on her dresser in her room. Like, there's a throw that has like the phases of the moon on it, or like it just like that sort of look. And it comes up later when she just starts singing a song about like the moon, and then she just says Hecate a couple times, and I swear to God, I cracked up so hard at that because honestly, my mom, you guys know, is a pagan. She was a part of a drum circle when I was a kid for a while. And there were totally just like songs that were only the names of goddesses like repeated over and over. And it just, that's not really far off the mark at all. So they each are getting ready. And of course, when they come out, Jinkx is still in the robe with her hair in curlers. And, when Dela follows, she has got this amazing red sheath dress with big ruffles made out of like a green sort of tinsel that looks almost like a Christmas tree and ornaments all over it. I am going to need this dress as soon as possible. Christmas is 10 days away, so we've got a little bit of time. I want it. And I don't think I would need a wig to make this hair happen either, because I have a whole lot of hair. I think I could get this look pretty much with just what I've got going on. It's just the whole way that this started, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what we're doing, because I, again, had no idea. So the overall sort of bit for 3/4 of this episode is the difference in the way they each celebrate, feel about, and look at Christmas. And I really enjoyed that they are in the scene sometimes, and then they get meta and reference it from the outside as well. I'm always a fan of that if it's done right. It can be done in a way that feels a little bit too winky and smug, but they don't feel that way to me. I felt like they really balanced it super well. And Dela is the thing when I said earlier that I feel like it holds up calling them Charlotte and Samantha is Dela's whole vibe feels very Episcopalian princess, which is the way that Charlotte is described in one episode. And it feels very much like, yeah, Charlotte definitely had a boozy grandma who was super uptight and racist and homophobic, and also threw one of the most beautiful Christmas celebrations you would ever see, but held her to impossible standards and was kind of like simultaneously aspirational and insufferable. Like that feels completely right to me. And let's see. Oh, Alex is saying, when I watched this, it reminded me a lot, and I think that's what they're going off of, the Pee-wee Christmas special. Never saw it. I did not like Pee-wee's Playhouse as a kid, though. He scared me. I found the show really creepy, and I only saw it like twice, and one time I had nightmares after, and I just never watched it again. So I know that that's like a big cult thing, but it was not something that I liked at all, and was really surprised as I got older to find out how popular it was with most people, because I just had no idea that anybody really liked it. And there's just a ton of nostalgia for it these days, with people like buying furniture that looks like the giant chair and stuff. And I was just like, really? Alex says, same. I was forced to watch the Christmas special. Oh, shit. Megan says, he gives me the creeps. Yeah, 100%. Right? Like, it was just such a weird thing to me as a kid, because he felt like the whole vibe he gave off was like vaguely pedophile-like, and there was nothing about him that was really like that. It was just like the sort of vibe. So I was always puzzled at the fact that it seemed to be marketed toward kids, when I was like under the impression when I was little. It wasn't until I got older that I realized it was actually genuinely kind of meant for kids, with an edge to it that would appeal to adults. I thought it was meant for adults, and it was a joke, like a spoof of a children's show for adults. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought that it was not even intended for children, but it was meant to be like, kind of like the whole thing with Krusty the Clown in The Simpsons, and how this is not like meant really, it like the Krusty special would be something that was written to appeal to adults who understand the fucked upness of Krusty, even if in universe it's meant for kids. So that's sort of how I like interpreted it. So anyway, sorry, I'm getting off track here. But so, yeah, Dela is talking about how it's Christmas time. It's time to make new friends. We wanted to entertain guests, and Jinkx is like, yeah, but because of the pandemic, we can't do that. And I really appreciate Dela being like, this is supposed to be timeless. You shouldn't talk about that right now. And so what we have is the two of them at odds a lot, because Jinkx did not grow up with beautiful, perfect Christmases. As we find out, neither did Dela, but Dela has like a very romanticized memory of them. And we find out also that probably maybe more often than she realized, there was something in the nog that softened the edges of her memories more than she realized. But it's just an interesting thing to see at the end how both of them probably did have some similar experiences, but one of them seems much more willing to look at the good, and the other isn't. And I don't think there's anything like inherently wrong with that. It's just a difference in the way you decide to like approach things. And I have to say, while a lot of what Jinkx was saying hit for me, I'm definitely more of a Dela. Like, I try not to be as aggressive about it, because I really do understand how people's experiences with Christmas are just dramatically different from mine. I've been very lucky, and my Christmases were actually pretty small, because even though I had a big family, I didn't interact with all of them at Christmas most of the time. It was usually just me, my mom, my dad, my grandma, just us four, And that was kind of it. And if we interacted with uncles and aunts, it was very brief on the day. We didn't have dinner with everybody. That was extremely rare. So the whole like dynamic of backbiting, passive aggressive family that you don't really like or know very well, but you act like you're all super close, even though they don't even really know you. This is not something that I have a lot of experience with. It's something that I grew to understand once I became part of Owen's family, because even Brendan, my first husband, almost all of his holidays were him and his parents and his sister, probably his grandma. And that was it for him as well. It was always extremely small. So that energy of bringing in people who aren't always around, and they're kind of like, not just the passive aggressiveness, but not necessarily knowing what's going on with them and them not knowing what's going on with you, and you updating each other and maybe being a little bit judgy about what's going on, or there being a sense of like competitiveness. Not on my radar, not a part of my life at all, and not a part of his. And even with Owen's family, it's not really so much a thing. It's just the sense with him very much that his family does not know who he is. They don't know that he's, if not atheist, at least agnostic. They don't know that he is absolutely like not conservative in any of his views. They don't know anything about him in a real way. And so there is a weirdness of them talking about how much they care about him and how close they feel when they genuinely don't know who he is. And it doesn't seem like they realize they don't know. And it also doesn't seem like they would want to know. Like there's no curiosity. They just sort of assume they know. And that's where it ends. So this whole like the sugar-coated memories and things seeming absolutely perfect in your nostalgia-soaked brain, that's way, way more of how I experience things. And like, there was a moment that I could not stop laughing, but it's basically, I think it's when Dela is talking to Nanog, the haunted nog. I'm going to say haunted, even though I don't think that's really the term that we want, but I think it's fair. Where she's talking about how like tradition is holding yourself to an impossible standard that was never reached to begin with and can never be reached either in the future or by anyone else. And I was just like, that's so rude. Wow. Because if that isn't the truest shit, I am really only just starting to realize, I'm pushing 40 here, guys, how much of my life has been spent trying to pursue the feelings I had at other events in my life. And that's not just limited to Christmas. It is just, I think it's a major factor in my overeating, to be honest. I associate so many foods with feelings of comfort and stability and camaraderie and warmth. And I try to get those feelings back by eating that food again, thinking that's going to be like the magical key, because that's one of the biggest sense memories I have associated with that period in my life, or that particular day, or that event, whatever. And I genuinely think there has been a big part of me trying to like recreate all of these things, and only just beginning to catch on. I can't do that. I can't recreate those moments. They were moments. They are over. What makes them special is the fact that you can't just mix ingredients together and get them again. Like that's the thing that makes them so valuable, is that you got them the one time. And that's not to say you can't make other amazing moments that will lodge themselves in your brain. It's just that trying to get the specific feeling you had from this 1 year back, you're never going to feel like you got there. It's just impossible to do it. So I really felt a lot of what Dela is going through here with like trying to do something to bring back a feeling that she has had before, trying to make her friend enjoy something that they're not only unfamiliar with in a fundamental way, but not really even particularly interested in. That's the hardest one. And I get Dela's just like not comprehending that Jinkx has not got interest in pursuing that feeling, because Dela is in her mind like, well, this was wonderful, and I'm telling you how wonderful it was, and don't you also, since you missed out on it and you're singing about how you missed out on it, don't you want it too, now that you know it's out there? And Jinkx is basically like, babe, that ship has sailed. No, I don't want it. It's not like, that's not what, you can't go back in time and make me feel a way about something that never felt that way to me. And I think that's the part that's a disconnect in a lot of minds, including mine, that I have an association that I think maybe if I just said the right things or put things together the right way, this person would feel just how I feel about it. And it's honestly like, Christmas has like a fandom, and that the fandom can be really toxic, like any fandom. And not everybody has a good relationship with the material. And there are lots of valid reasons for that. And you've got to step back and not gatekeep and try and push your interpretation of the material onto other people, because it's just doesn't work. That's kind of defeats the whole purpose of the thing, right? So just that whole theme throughout this, and the vibe of each of them, I really like enjoyed the dynamic. I just felt like this is something that I have been on both sides of, because while I don't necessarily have this relationship with Christmas, there are other things that I feel this way, the way that Jinkx does, just basically like, this has never been a thing for me. And you have got to understand that it's never going to matter as much for me as it does for you. And that's because in my family, it's, it simply wasn't the way it is for most people. And it's really when you like go out into the world as a teen for the first time, like going to college or something, and you've been in high school with people who are not your people, but they are still often, because of the way that like going to public school works, usually in like the same general socioeconomic bracket, you are still somewhat insulated. And it isn't until you really go out into the world and start to be like, oh God, this is really different for everybody else than it was for me, that you start to get a better sense of all of this stuff, So I always thought that holidays were celebrated the same way by everybody. And they were like, all holidays from Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year were a big deal with my family. Massively, like just done up. But 4th of July could not give any fucks. And it's a huge thing here. Like Owen has a ton of memories of going to the fireworks shows like down on the lake and being on a boat, and there's like a whole thing that goes on. Just not really a thing for me. I don't care, and with the way things have gone with this country, he's lost a lot of his enthusiasm for it, which is too bad. But that's a good example of just something that like never, the finding out what a big deal it was down here was genuinely surprising. So I wanted to talk just like off the top about like the general themes with the two of them, but also about the songs and my favorite songs. So we have the opening number, And guys, Dela shows up in like a little drummer boy outfit at one point, and I really enjoy the way they do these cuts because sometimes it looks like she's actually just putting on her coat over this costume. Of course she's not. They do a cut, but it looks for a second like, how is this going to oh my god, I just saw in the chat Florian is saying, what is the popcorn on a string thing? Never heard of that. And Alex says it's a holiday decoration that I never quite got either. It is considered country Christmas decorating, which anything that uses food for decorating is considered country decorating because it is multi-purpose. And basically what I mean is when you're rich, you get to have holiday decorations that go into storage that you only pull out at the holidays, and they can be reused year after year. But if you were poor and lived on a farm, you would make temporary stuff that then you could eat yourself, or you could put outside for the birds to eat, like popcorn on a string. Or I would make these, like, this was when I was little, not that I lived on a farm or anything, but this was just like my mom liked to do sort of really old fashioned traditional decorating sometimes. So we would string popcorn with a needle and thread onto like embroidery thread, painstaking, but honestly like weirdly satisfying, especially to me being just a drop OCD, I think. And also cranberries. A lot of times I would do like, you know, a foot of popcorn and then 6 inches of cranberries and then another foot of popcorn. So you'd get the red and white together, which looked really pretty. Pomander balls, which are like oranges or tangerines or nectarines, and you would press cloves into them and they smell really good. And the like spice being pressed into it would create air pockets that would open, and the whole thing would sort of dry, and it would become a decoration that you could like hang from a ribbon on the Christmas tree. So my grandmother had a lot of pomander balls that she would hang, and she would also slice orange slices in perfect rounds, and she would dry them so that they were semi-transparent, and she would hang those on the tree, and the light would shine through the orange slices, and it was gorgeous. It was so pretty. But another thing that I would make as a kid was the like little cookies that were just basically like water and flour, and you would press birdseed into them and cut them out with cookie cutters, and you wouldn't bake them. You would just let them dry. You probably could bake them though. And you would cut a little hole in them to like string a ribbon through. And then you would go into the yard and you would hang these things all over a tree. And they were basically like hanging bird food or for squirrels or whatever. And it was super fun to like hang them and then watch and see, you know, any of the animals that came along and would grab them up. And so this is the kind of thing that it's like, the other one is, paper chains. And that's depending on the tradition, but sometimes you would write wishes on them. We didn't do that. We just did the paper, and it was like strips of construction paper, and you would either staple or tape them and make chains out of them. And they were really cheap to make because construction paper is cheap. You could throw them away after Christmas and they wouldn't have to go into storage. And they were also like a fun project to do with kids. And that's really like the main thing about a lot of those sorts of decorations is that they're multi-purpose, they're disposable, you can eat them or something else can eat them, and they're an activity to do with children that sort of makes it feel like the holidays are coming because this is what we do at this time every year kind of thing. But anyway, sorry, keep on getting off track. This is the thing with talking about Christmas. It's just always going to be lots of things for me to say. But the opening number, Dela gets into this white coat. You guys, I know that I already said this about this Christmas tree dress, but I am going to have to do times 1,000 for this white fur coat. I have actually a coat that is not that unlike this. It is white. It has a fur collar. It has fur trim on the wrists, I think, or maybe on the bottom. It only comes to my knees. It's not long, but that's really probably more practical for around here. But this with the fucking hat, I mean, does it get better? And this collar is so much more dramatic than mine. This is the thing. I am sure that this is artificial fur, but it's done in such a way that it looks its best. Is there anything sadder than artificial fur that's been like in storage for a little while? Like my coat that has this trim is in the closet. I rarely wear it because it doesn't get cold enough here. And then the collar just looks so sad. I have to like really brush it and comb it up to give it any fullness and height and make it look like I want it to look. And I actually wound up buying a faux fur scarf to wear with it because the collar never quite got to the level I wanted. So the scarf does it and gives it the look, but I am sweltering in it every time. It's just a little bit too much and I love it. There's photos of me in it last Christmas or the Christmas before. And I look amazing. I look like Christmas come to life, but it's just too hot, man. And so she's like swanning through this. She's got the fucking giant like diamond earrings and the red nails and the red lips. And it's just so great. The Florian is in the chat saying, I wasn't sure how you'd feel about the song. So back and forth. Some of the songs I really liked and some of them did not hit for me at all. This one did not hit for me. I enjoyed watching the two of them because of the weirdness of the background. Like the backup dancers and stuff are so over the top when it's Dela, and the vibe is sort of creepy because they're so over the top. And I do like the contrast between what's going on with her and what's going on with Jinkx. When the songs begin to sort of layer over each other, I felt like I couldn't actually hear what each of them was saying. And it just got a little bit muddled and confused. It didn't layer elegantly enough for me. And I should also mention that I straight up, it did not occur to me that there was going to be singing in the show at all. And I don't know why, because fucking of course there's going to be singing. I don't know why. So at first my initial reaction was, oh no. And I immediately I managed to be like, girl, this is the thing. Like, what are you doing? And I managed to get over myself very quickly, thankfully. But because I didn't love this opening song, I was definitely a bit nervous about it. The song that I liked the best, for sure, was, is it Santa Fa La La? Is that what it's called? It's the R&B Santa song. I swear to God, if that isn't the most pitch perfect, it's so good, you guys. That fucking killed me. Like, it's a combination of how Dela doesn't seem to get how sexual it is, and also how everybody in that sketch is basically like buck ass naked or as close to buck naked as they're going to get, except for Dela, who is in like either full pajamas or once again a sort of sheath dress. And so it's like she gets it a little bit, but she isn't participating in this the way that anybody else is. And just the fucking like, we're going to have a bunch of people dressed as sexy reindeer and they're wearing harnesses. It makes sense. We've got people like pole dancing in the background and G-strings. This shit is so funny. And Santa's hot, by the way. Like, Santa is fine. The whole performance here, I just really, really loved it. Now, I want to mention, for me, the difference in the types of performance here, because what was sort of caught me off guard after a bit, it isn't as apparent initially, and then as the show continues into the second song, really, the one that Jinkx sings about how nobody ever played Santa for her, then it started to become way more obvious that a lot of this is lip synced, like, or ADR'd, either or perhaps both. I feel Jinkx is way better at either the ADR or the lip sync or both. I feel like she seems a lot more natural. Dela is way over the top with her facial expressions in a way that feels like this is supposed to be a comedy performance, but I feel like her performance turns the corner from being funny to trying too much to be funny and sometimes going in a direction that just feels really stupid and goofy looking. So, and it's not always. Sometimes I felt like she was right on the nose with the kind of like act she was supposed to be putting on. I feel like the times that it was the worst were when she was talking to Nanog, because I think probably carrying a scene like that where it's you and a fucking puppet of an inanimate object, that's got to be really tough. So I think maybe she was just overdoing it a little bit in those scenes because she was all alone and she didn't have Jinkx to play off of. So she was trying to really do it up in order to keep everyone's interest, because it's hard performing alone. Like, as somebody doing podcasts by myself, sometimes I feel like I am not fun to watch. Sometimes I know for sure not as many people listen to the ones I do by myself as I do with a co-host, and I don't blame them. I don't listen to almost any solo podcast at all. I am not mad at people for that. But I'm just, trying to explain like my perspective on it, because it felt like Dela wasn't always overdoing it and sometimes was like weirdly charming. And then there were times where I was like, girl, what are you doing? Oh my God, stop. What is that face you're trying to make? Let's see. Alex says Jinkx does sing as well, and she had an off-Broadway show called The Vaudevillians, and she's going to be playing Matron Mama Morton in... Oh, that's gonna be good. In Chicago on Broadway for 8 weeks. I already bought tickets. That's gonna be good. Megan, I believe I watched Santa Fa La La for a week last year. Yes. This is something that I would definitely go find just this song on YouTube and like share it with somebody. Megan says the lip syncing is definitely a drag thing. It's not necessarily supposed to look authentic, at least with my experience of Drag Race. And Alex says it depends on the tone of the song is my experience. Okay. So Alex saying Jinkx does sing as well. So does Dela not sing? Is Dela lip syncing someone else? I guess because like Megan saying the lip syncing is definitely a drag thing. Again, I'm not super familiar with how that works. So are a lot of the performers on Drag Race lip syncing to a different, like somebody else's voice? Or are they pre-recorded and they're lip syncing to themselves? Megan says, no, that's Dela's voice. Alex says, I think she did actually do tracks for the show, but it is lip syncing. Megan says Jinkx is classically trained, or trained at least. Alex is usually the second option. So they sing, but then they lip sync over themselves. Okay. Huh. Why is that? Like, if you're going to do the singing anyway. Oh, Alex is saying, yeah, after some auto-tune and other stuff comes in. Okay, so it's just meant to be, like, to get it to sound totally polished. And probably to make them sound more diva-ish, I'm guessing, right? Like, you want to really feel like you're nailing it every time. Florian says, also, it sings different singing in a corset than normal. That's true. I didn't think about that, but singing in a corset is no fucking joke. Especially, like, they are really laced in because they're trying to get that hourglass look. So that compression that's happening is real. Versus, like, if a woman who has an hourglass look anyway, she might not necessarily need to lace so tight. It's just the overall look of the corset that she's going for, but she wouldn't necessarily be going for the compression. She could still sing in a corset and leave room to breathe, depending on the look she was going for. Me, when I wear corsets, I always went for compression. Georgie says, but also as an art form, American drag always has lip syncing. Part of it being a drag show means recorded audio. Okay, so that's just always like standard. I didn't know that. Alex says, yeah, they have challenges where they have to record a voice, and some people are singers and have no issues. And then there are those who need a bit more help, and that's Dela. Georgie says, obviously, tons of exceptions. Okay. Interesting. Well, then, yeah, I think that it's just that Jinkx is better at pulling off the lip sync. Like, it was only very occasionally that she didn't totally match, or an intake of breath was kind of off, or it seemed like her mouth was open longer than the note went on, or whatever. Dela really felt like just extreme, like almost what it felt like for me was Jinkx's lip syncing in a way that's meant to make it look like she is just singing and talking. Dela almost felt like somebody who is like a mime, and their part of their performance is letting everybody know that this isn't them talking. Like, they just seem to both each be going for very different kinds of things with the way that they performed these. So yeah, it's just like, and like I said, most of the time Dela was hitting for me nevertheless, but there were times where I was just like, oh man, you're starting to really grate on me, girl. I'm going to need you to win me back over. So yeah, this Santa Fa La La, that was definitely my favorite. I do really enjoy the set with the bar and the way that the decorations change and things like kind of shift around over there a lot, and their costumes. Oh my God. And of course, again, Dela's costumes, just my favorite. I'm just very much more Dela. Everything that she wore, I was like on point. Yes. And that's not to say that I didn't fucking love a lot of what Jinkx wore. It was more that if I were personally going to pick what I would want to wear, I would almost always pick the thing that Dela was wearing. Jinkx's stuff is perfect, but not for me. And I think that's what makes them work together as like being buds, because honestly, a lot of what Jinkx wore would be what Rashawn would wear for me. You know, like Rashawn and I have a really similar aesthetic for clothes in a general sense, but then the specifics would be really different. So like when they're each wearing a sort of like candy stripe, white sequins, and one of them is white and green and the other's white and red, Jinkx's is a jumpsuit with like a cowl neck, and Dela's is a one sleeve dress with like a high slit. And I really feel like the jumpsuit feels like much more Rashawn speed, you know? Florian says the second song was my fave. Is that the Nobody Ever Played Santa for Me? Yeah, and I do also really like when the way that Jinkx says something about how you've never experienced Christmas as an upper, middle, lower, upper class or something. She like puts a couple of different, and so it makes it very clear that like you were middle class, but you were on like the lower tier of middle class, but you were like on the upper part of the lower tier of middle class, which same, you know, I was never like poor in the way that you worry about where your next meal is coming from, but I was poor in the way that I am getting exactly the education that the public school can give me and not a drop more. And I'm not getting any tutors, and I'm not getting any second chances to take the SATs, that kind of thing. Alex says, well, and I think it helps to be said that Dela and Jinkx are campy queens. They over-exaggerate everything and just take it to the nth degree. Florian says the baby one I liked the least. Is that the baby Jesus twist? Is that what that's, or the nativity twist? Is that the one? I really liked the nativity twist. I don't know why. I think it's mostly because it caught me off guard so bad. And so I was just kind of like, wait, what's going on? Because it starts off in such a way that I was like, what is happening? And then when she's like, it's the nativity twist, and I realized what they were doing, and that it was kind of like almost a Beach Boys sort of thing. I was like, oh my God, okay, I get it now. And that's kind of the thing, was like, mostly when I started to really get on board with whatever the style of the song was, I had a better time. It took me a minute to sort of get what they were going for. So the opening, like, extremely over the top holiday thing didn't quite hit, but then No One Played Santa for Me is done as a very sort of like bluesy, and it's a lot of bass and just like basic drums and occasionally a bit of piano mixed in. So, and I have to say too, Jinkx's outfit in No One Played Santa for Me, she's wearing her hair in this like half up ponytail and these little like, I guess capri pants with a sheer blouse that ties in front over it. She looks like Peg Bundy. And I say that with all the respect and compliment that I mean, like, because Peg Bundy was super hot. And it was always like weird and wild to me that the joke was supposed to be that her husband didn't want to fuck her anymore. Because I was like, are you kidding? This woman is fucking stunning. She has a tiny waist and big tits and perfect makeup and hair. What more do you want, sir? And when she was walking around with this hair and the like particular look of this sort of, I guess, shrug, I was like, who is she reminding me of? And that's who it was. I finally put it together. But yeah, so I really do enjoy the jokes about the eggnog too. And like, honestly, Rashawn and I just did an Unsober episode about weird Christmas traditions. And I had intended to talk about some of the weird Christmas traditions that we just sort of don't see as weird because they're familiar to us, you know? But we got a little bit distracted because some of y'all around the world do some truly strange shit. And Florian knows. Catalonia is fucking wildin'. I don't know what they're doing, but they need to get a hold of themselves because that shit is off-putting. But like when you stop and think about eggnog, why? What? And I love eggnog. First to say, it's delicious. It's so good. I actually ordered some on my grocery order that I could not pick up today. So I am looking forward to having a bit of that. But it truly, I made eggnog from scratch one time and was genuinely in the middle of making it going, oh God, this is what goes in this? Like more than one time. It's just a weird thing. It's a weird thing. It's fine. I like it. It's rich and creamy and delicious, but genuinely, what the fuck are we thinking? So then we have the sort of real fight that happens between Dela and Jinkx. And this is sort of what we get later, jumping ahead a bit here, is that apparently Jinkx fucked Jesus Christ. Very, very attractive man. Stark naked. So he appears. I'm sure he wasn't really, but I don't know. Maybe he was really. It'd probably be easier. And he basically accuses Jinkx of doing the same thing to Dela that Dela is doing to her. Namely, trying to get her to feel the same way about Christmas that she herself feels. And while I appreciate that we need a moral to this Christmas tale, like that's part of doing these specials, right? Is usually there's some sort of like we don't see eye to eye, but we're going to come together anyway. I don't feel like that comparison was actually fair or correct. Like, it didn't ever feel to me like Jinkx was trying to get Dela to feel badly about Christmas at all. It just felt like Jinkx was trying to get Dela to understand why she didn't feel the same way and respect that she didn't want to celebrate it in the same way. And it never seemed like she was saying, you don't get to celebrate. It was just, keep Christmas in your way and let me keep it in mine. Keep it, but you don't keep it. Let me leave it alone then. She's a bit of a Scrooge. And honestly, like, I think that's fine. You know, I don't have a problem with somebody just deciding a thing isn't for them. And I never really felt like she was trying to take anything away from Dela. It felt like Dela was trying to take something away from her a little bit. Because we have a whole bit initially where Jinkx is trying to explain to Dela, you don't get how it was for me. And Dela's like, oh, okay, then tell me. And every time she starts talking, Dela interrupts her. And then later on is like basically being indoctrinated by Nanog and kind of wanting to like forcibly make her experience things a certain way. And like she says that out loud. So it was the kind of thing like there was just a one-to-one comparison being made between the way each of them was behaving. And I understand that as a necessity for the script, but I did not feel like it was actually fair at all. It just seemed like, well, we're just going to say, if we were going to write it that way, I don't know. It felt like the only time that we really see that happen is when eventually we get a bit that is really funny that I thought was extremely well done. Jinkx and Dela each have copies of the script that they're writing in, and the bit is basically, if they write it down, the other has to immediately be doing it. Like they're being controlled physically by the script. So then we start to get into like the territory of Jinkx like trying to make Dela do things because she is making her be like, oh, Christmas, I love it so much, and now I'm gonna act like a giant baby. But like she had already been pushed and prodded so much by the time she did that I wasn't mad at her for it. I was just like, damn right, you know? And I think it's partially to do with the fact that I believe most of us have the experience of extremely, like, if not necessarily specifically religious, at least super tradition driven people. I'm going to say mostly, though, the religious thing is really where it comes from. Being so aggro about us doing things a certain way. And because I think a lot of us, especially in the US, have been on the receiving end of that kind of like veiled bigotry, we're more sensitive to it. So I think that like maybe Dela just hits more annoying and more wrong than Jinkx ever does, because she is hitting a particular like trigger of mine, you know? And I didn't even have this experience too much growing up because like my father got religious right around when, like super religious, right around when I was like 8 years old. He started to get clean around when I was like 6 or 7 and go to AA. And that was what led him to become a born again Christian. And he got real serious and started to be like a bit militant about it when I was about 8 or 9. And because it was really just him, and because I was that old when it started happening, I already had a lot of much more secular Christmases in my childhood that I remembered more clearly. And so this wasn't really much of a factor for me as a really little kid. It wasn't until 9 and 10 that I started to get the reason for the season sort of thing. And even then, it was only coming from him. My grandmother went to church and she played the piano at her church and stuff. And so we would go to that service, or we would go to midnight mass, even though we're not Catholic, in New Haven, because it was St. Mary's is this massive church there, and it was this gorgeous service. So we would do things like that. But it was never about the religion. We went to St. Mary's because of the music. We went to St. Mary's because of the architecture, the candles, the lilies, the huge swags of pine, and all of the stuff that happened in New Haven around Christmas time. It was all of the accoutrement and not really the religion. And it's a big reason why my mom is so drawn to Catholicism because there's pageantry, there's ritual, that's what she really likes. So even though this is something that I understand a lot of people went through, and I definitely had religion pushed on me a ton growing up, Christmas was never really that bad in that regard. It happened a whole rest of the year. And it always sort of felt like at Christmas, my dad realized he was just not going to win. So he would throw an attitude. He didn't like us having a Christmas tree. He thought that's pagan. It comes from a pagan ritual. We shouldn't be doing it. And so he would refuse to go pick a tree. He would refuse to decorate it with us. And he would just sit there with a fucking puss on his face and be just incredibly intolerable. But he didn't try to stop us from doing it or anything. And so all this to say, I think that just generally, those of us who have been on the receiving end of people who are very pushy about their beliefs, and those people often are folks who are in a position of some privilege and power over us, that is going to always feel different in terms of the type of reaction we have. And so the way that Dela is behaving, while it might not seem like she's being anything other than well-intentioned and sweet toward her friend, wanting her to have a perfect Christmas and genuinely wishing that she had grown up with better experiences, which this is just somebody who is a good friend, it just hits different because you're like, girl, no, you're doing the thing that we make fun of because it is so played. Don't do this, I love at one point when Jinkx is like, you're just shoving Christmas down my throat. And Dela's like, I thought you liked that. I'm sorry. Anyway. So yeah, the nativity twist I actually did really like, but the bit where we have the two of them each writing into the script different things that are happening, especially when it causes a sudden costume change or really big physical action, I thought was so fun to watch. That shit was so funny. So basically what it winds up being is that Jinkx writes in that Dela is going to be attacked by a bear and Christmas will be ruined. And then she goes to the bar by herself, tearing down all of the Christmas decorations and everything. And this is when Naked Man turns up. And she's ranting to him about how Dela doesn't understand her experience. And I love the description of Dela grew up having the kind of Christmases that I only heard about. And I only heard about them from other kids who had also only heard about them. To which he says, oh, so it was like a game of telephone, which means like by the end, it's going to be very different than how it started out. And I was like, it's not a bad point, actually. That feels like, yeah. I just mean you weren't there. She says something about how she grew up in an ivory tower surrounded by other smaller ivory towers. Even the trees were made of ivory. This is just, I don't know. That just was very funny to me. I don't know why. I think it was her delivery, but that line just really got to me. So then we have her song about a passive-aggressive Christmas and how everybody is itching for a fight. Everybody is acting like we're so close. And it's at this like table full of people who are all sort of jostling and each like sort of smacking each other's hands and arguing across the table and taking things out of each other's hands. And it's like, what made me laugh? And I kind of thought that this would sort of circle back around and become more of a moment. And it doesn't, which I thought was a little bit of a missed opportunity. This description of like the passive aggressive Christmas, I have to imagine is also exactly what this shit was like for Dela, except she was like too young to quite realize it. So I thought what we were going to have was her singing about her experience with a passive aggressive Christmas. And it was going to turn out that Dela was listening and began to see the similarities in their experiences, that she was going to be like, oh yeah, no, there was that one year where like aunt so-and-so and cousin so-and-so were arguing about such, like, because if you do have big family Christmases, that tends to be a thing where people who like otherwise don't get the chance to argue about something, they both act like they've let it go, but that's only because they don't see each other in person that often. And once they're in person, they haven't let it go. They've just let it fucking simmer for 8 months. And now they're getting a chance to sort of like let off some steam finally that's been building. That is not uncommon. And this is part of a thing at weddings as well. Weddings are a big one too, especially because people will make an effort to get together for a wedding that they won't necessarily for a holiday, because holidays, everybody's celebrating at the same time. So you have to pick who you're going to see. But a wedding, it's oftentimes at a time where everybody is like, we're all going to make an effort to go to this one thing. So you're getting a lot more people showing up together at a wedding than you would other stuff. And a lot there's like whole Reddit threads dedicated to the kind of familial stuff that'll pop up, which is part of why I'm so glad that both Owen and I have a somewhat like close family and we had a small wedding. But this passive aggressive thing seems like something that would be a big part of Dela's growing up experience, to be honest. And I just really liked the way that this was done as like a rock song, and like there's no real like part of the set other than the focus on the table and everybody sitting at the table. I just thought that was really, really effective. So it ends with him kind of managing to teach Dela, hey, maybe you should just have a little bit more empathy for your friend. And he gets up and goes to put on his little, puts on this like robe, and does he have a crown of thorns? I can't remember if he has that, because he's definitely got the robe with like the red sash. I'm watching. Yeah, he's got the crown of thorns. There it is. And he just waves really happily at her as he walks out the door, and it's just so funny. And she says, I guess I had more of the Holy Spirit in me than I ever realized. Oh my God. But then we have Dela coming back. They do some really nice makeup on her for this black eye. I was genuinely like, ooh, look at that. Good shading. Just looks really good. And she's in shock. She's got like a slash across her stomach from the claws and blood coming off her lip. And Nanog comes up and she's just like, this special isn't going the way that I planned. And it's kind of falling apart. And here it is. That's Christmas. No, this isn't Christmas. This is terrible. You wanted my help carry on Christmas tradition. So you worked your fingers to the bone, made yourself sick trying to uphold some imaginary ideal of the past, tried to force someone else to do something that isn't important to them, ultimately leading to everyone feeling disappointed, resentful, and angry. But you said that through the spirit of tradition. I just said the spirit of tradition is how I did it. I didn't say it was good or that anyone liked it. But I remember Christmas always being so lovely. Oh, that's because you're drunk. Wasted. But I thought you were virgin. Everyone wants to believe their grandmother is a virgin. Have you not understood what the spirit of tradition is this whole time? Oh, of course. It's like generosity and nostalgia and no. It's rum. I'm extremely alcoholic. I'm drunk right now. So are you. I only think I like Christmas. This did crack me up. I just really worked your fingers to the bone trying to uphold an imaginary standard that just truly so rude. Oh my God. And and it's funny too, because drinking at Christmas, I did not grow up in a household that drank very much. My parents did Coke. That's what they did when I was very little. They drank some, but it wasn't that big a thing. They did Coke. And then when my dad started to get clean, when I was 6 and 7 years old, there was no Coke and there was no booze and there was no nothing. And I did not grow up with drinking being a tradition with Christmas or Thanksgiving. So, and now I'm with somebody whose grandparents who host everything are teetotalers. So there is no boozing at any holidays now either. So this is not something that I particularly relate to. And I don't really drink a lot at the holidays because I just don't drink a lot. I can't hold it. I am a lightweight and I get sick really fast. So not so much a thing for me. But honestly, I can put this in the context of food because that's what I was talking about earlier with trying to get a feeling back and trying to use food to do that, and using booze and food. Very, very similar, honestly, in a lot of ways. So that really makes a lot of sense to me. Just truly, when she thinks about how she only thinks she likes Christmas, we get her looking at the camera with her eye twitching. And then all of a sudden it cuts to this montage of a Christmas tree lighting on fire, a hammer coming down and smashing a figurine of Rudolph, a bunch of candy canes that are melting and sizzling. And there was one other part of that I'm trying to see because it all goes by so fast, but it's hysterical. I just loved this so well. I think that's a Christmas list burning. Something's burning before the candy canes start to melt. And I don't know what that last thing is. It explodes, but I couldn't quite tell. And just as she has this sort of moment, we get then Jinkx running down and being okay, now I'm in the Christmas spirit. And I have got to say, you guys, watching Jinkx and Dela go up and down these fucking stairs in these fucking shoes, it's really got me thinking. I need to get it together, you guys. I absolutely cannot in heels and fucking stairs anymore. I can't do it. And I want to get it back. I want to be able to do it again. And I don't know why. I don't know why it's important to me. I'm not going to be on stairs in heels anywhere, probably, for the rest of my life. And yet I just feel but this is a skill I want to have again. is it? I don't know. Genuinely, why do I care? It's just they're able, you know, and not that it's not awkward, because there's no way, I'm sorry, to walk downstairs in heels and not look awkward. You can try your best, and if you are able and allowed to hold a handrail, you can make it look kind of good, but it's very, very tough and mostly not going to work, no matter how like elegant you are or how hot your shoes are. But anyway, Jinkx manages to like get Dela into this dress, and they have their second like tap number, which Dela does not participate in at all. The tap number, obviously that's not them tapping, but I did sort of enjoy the fact that they don't even do like, there's no effort made to pretend that it's them tapping, really, because like anytime that the camera comes back up to their waist up and shows their faces, sometimes the camera waist up will still catch their feet, and you'll see they're still wearing their like heels and stuff, but they're supposedly also tap dancing. So it's just very like sloppily done, and I think that's totally on purpose, and I found that pretty funny, to be honest. So Jinkx gets drunk so that she can hear Nanog, and we find out that Nanog died because she ate extremely poisonous mistletoe. And so Dela's like, well, then why do we bring fucking poisonous mistletoe into our house? And she's like, yeah, we do a lot of stupid shit. I'm also homophobic and racist. You really shouldn't listen to me. And this is when we have Jinkx say, well, see, this is what we can do. We can create our own traditions. And so we have this lovely montage of the two of them decorating the tree and hosting parties. And honestly, you guys, everything like, I love the look of all of this so much. I love them like chopping down the tree with their chainsaws and all of these like wood chips that go flying. One of them like winds up in Jinkx's mouth, and she has to spit it out. But they're both like in gorgeous like red and green robes with the like feathered trim. How many of these robes do they have on set, do you think? I mean, I won't even tell you how much mine cost. The black one that I wore, it was such a fortune. And I haven't worn it again since. And I know where it is. And I keep thinking like, I should wear it. But like, I have cats, and all I can think about is how the hem is just going to be like full of cat hair and like lint leaves maybe out that are on the floor. Just, you know what I mean? I should wear it anyway. But when you have a sort of like old crappy home, wearing that sort of thing around the house feels really weird. Florian says, I like to think of gay in this song as the old-fashioned gay, as in good/jolly, but also queer, 100%. And I think that's intentional, right? Using gay in that way here. But it really is like they're unwrapping presents and tossing the paper behind them, while at one point Jinkx is like toking up, and she's used a match and she tosses it behind her, and then you just see the light of the flame that ignites behind her. I really, really enjoyed this, and I really enjoyed Dela sort of listening to her talk about how Christmas could be if they let it be. And all of this was just really sweet. And it leads to like the final number where Dela is wearing once again, one sleeve. I think it's hot pink. I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's red. I think it's hot pink. Sequin gown with the like white fur draping around like a giant cape. And then Jinkx has got a more A-line gown with a really high slit, and the slit is what's outlined in fur. And then she has like a little capelet, and she's got actual sleeves on hers and a big white belt. And the backup dancers are wearing bright pink sequined hot pants and open vests of the style of like Aladdin, where your entire chest is showing and the point of the vest is sort of unclear. It's simply decorative. And they have hats on like Vegas showgirls with the giant ostrich feathers and stuff. I'm looking at this and realizing I had said that the costumes in the photo for the live show didn't look like costumes I recognized, but it was these. It was these like final number costumes. That's what it was. Okay. But yeah, this last number is delightful. Their costumes are just I want all of them so much. I have to imagine being a backup dancer on one of these shows must be a fucking blast. Like, can you imagine? It just has to be the absolute best time. Oh my God. So this whole number is everyone who's traumatized by Christmas. No one's safe when Santa comes to town. And it just ends with essentially, look, bud, I understand. Christmas mostly sucks for everybody. And you're not the only one that feels that way. So if you've got shitty, overbearing family, or you don't even have any family, or maybe you have a job that just gets real bad at this time of year, you are not alone. Everybody goes through it at this time of year. We just have our wounds gift wrapped to get by. I really liked that line. We drown our depression in more fruitcake and wine. This is just a really, I really liked this. The idea of like, not only are we going to make new traditions because we are important to each other, but we're encouraging all of you to understand that you should do the same thing because all of us feel this way. And you may feel like you're the only one who doesn't love Christmas like everyone else. Promise that's not true. It was very like wholesome and touching in the end, even though it's like very much not wholesome in many ways. It still was. You know, which is the best kind. That's the best kind. And I'm watching the giant like ostrich fans in the background. I didn't even notice the first time that when they wave the fans and the backup dancers are kicking, there are all of these like sparkles that they've CG'd over it. That's a good bit. And it ends with them they have drawn their little figures onto the holiday special with crayon. They pull the script away and then they pour old Nanog down the garbage disposal. And then Florian had warned me to watch the actual credits because he said that there was like an additional thing here. And they had a rap basically after over the credits where they sing about the different Christmas traditions around the world and stuff. And they said like they mention it's not even just Christmas traditions, it's other holidays, but some of the stuff that gets brought up is still to do with Christmas a little bit. Like they mentioned Krampus and stuff. And I'm trying to find the spot. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to jump ahead a little bit here. Saint Nick is Santa, but Saint Nicholas isn't. Let's see. In Austria, where Krampus is the big man on campus, Rumpelklaas, Pelsnickel, Belsnickel, and Hansmuff punish bad kids in the place where they're indigenous. Let's see. Jinkx is trying to... Let's see. I'm trying to find the Buckle Up Buttercup. We've just found out international holidays. I'm trying to find the spot because there was something that they said specifically that I was like, wait, really? What? And I wanted to look into it more, but I can't remember what it was. Sorry, they sing so slow here that the subtitles are going really, really slowly. So I'm not able to like... But I did really like that they made the effort to do this because I had a couple moments of thinking they keep mentioning that they shouldn't just focus on Christmas, but then they didn't really do it. And then they sort of like coped with that really. And also always appreciate anytime somebody is like, Hanukkah is not Jewish Christmas, because it's wild how many people still think that's a thing. And like, I thought that was the thing when I was like 12, you know. It's been a long time since I ever believed that, so it's weird to think there are still adults out there that treat it that way. But I appreciated, oh, here it is. There's like a Boda Day for Buddhists. Muslim customs give them some Maulid and Nabah. Nabah, Kwanzaa is to honor your African pedigree. Immaculate Conception is a day down in Lima. And I don't know much about the Church of Satan Sabrina. I feel like the Immaculate Conception has to do with Christmas still, though, doesn't it? If your interest is commercial and not religious, you could still have Christmas if you're an atheist, which does make sense. Just it's a day to pray you get your Amazon wish list. But yeah, I did appreciate the effort. It's just what I keep thinking, like, there was an episode of The Simpsons that Owen and I watched last night because he likes to do a thing around this time of year and Halloween where he finds like serialized TV shows that have holiday episodes and just watch all of the holiday episodes by themselves. And there was a Simpsons episode where like Lisa asks Bart, what about all of the people who don't celebrate Christmas? And he says something like, well, you don't have to be Christian. Christmas is a day when all of the people of the world come together to celebrate Jesus Christ. And it just really is like the vibe, like, oh, Christmas is non-secular, except it's all still like it is secular. Non-secular is religious, right? Secular means it's not religious. I always get that mixed up. But like it is though. And so to pretend that it's totally secular is just really dishonest. But also we do have to treat it that way a little bit. If you don't believe and you still want to celebrate it, it's just a very convoluted thing. Anyway, but yeah, this was super fun. I really enjoyed this. I actually, I sent a link to my mom and I was like, you need to watch this with Jim, her husband. Because I think they will really, really enjoy it. She saw the like image and she was like, really? And I was like, trust me, but I think they will really, really love this. And, definitely going to be sending the Santa Fa La La to a couple of people because just delightful. All right. Well, thank you again, Florian, so much for commissioning this. It was really nice to do something like seasonal as well. I don't think I've ever been commissioned to watch something seasonal. I guess, was I commissioned to watch The Thing and The Vivitch at Halloween times? Maybe those were sort of seasonal. I can't recall. I feel like it was past Halloween, but maybe I'm wrong. But either way, definitely nothing like Christmassy specifically that I remember. So yeah, this is a really nice change. Appreciate it. Okay, everybody, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you all again so much for listening and hanging out with me. Appreciate you. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.